This is the Gray Space Podcast.
Welcome to the Gray Space Podcast. My name is Luke, and in this episode of the podcast, my brother Gabe and I will be doing what we have called, for lack of a better way to title it, Brother versus Brother. This is going to be episode 4, so if you haven't seen the previous episodes, make sure to check those out. Not in the audio version, if you're listening to this on iTunes or Overcast or something like that. Those are on YouTube, so check us out on YouTube. We've got lots of other discussions and episodes as well, and make sure while you're there to leave a like and also subscribe so that you can get notifications. That's what subscribing is for. That's the purpose of it. In this episode, we talk about the coronavirus and the implications of it, and then that sort of wanders into politics, the primaries coming up, and then, very importantly, we talk about Star Trek Picard. At the time of recording, only the first and the second episode have come out, so we talk about the first and the second episode, which I think gets pretty interesting. All right, so enjoy the discussion. I think if the thing that we're happening in China is happening in the U.S., then it would be a very different story. I mean, they might have to cancel the Super Bowl. Do you know how bad things are right now over there?
In China?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about. I mean, I read like Reddit and stuff, and conspiracy pages and stuff, and it sounds like it's a lot worse than what people are saying. And you probably have more insight on that than me. But a lot of people are saying that the U.S. news media is kind of holding off until after the Super Bowl before they start allowing things through. But they might just keep it shut off just to keep it.
Well, I don't think it benefits anybody to not take action. So I think the best thing to do is watch actions rather than read words. So it sort of goes without saying that any number that's reported by the Chinese government, everybody knows that it's going to be distorted. Mm-hmm. It's a given. Every person knows that. So it doesn't even, to me, make sense to say, oh, did you know that the numbers might be underreported? Of course they're underreported. Mm-hmm. So the thing to look at then is, what is the Chinese government doing? What are their actions? And their actions are extremely clear.
Shutting off entire provinces.
Well, they're actually doing a really good job. They shut down an entire city. There are piles of dirt at the end of every road in Wuhan. Is that really? I mean, no. I think if they were to have done a good job, they wouldn't have had to get to that point, right? Well,
I don't know.
That's true that they should have acted earlier, but actually, it seems to be the local Wuhan government which kind of screwed up and delayed reporting it, and could have done that earlier rather than
It's just like the Chernobyl thing, right? That's what everybody says. It's similar to Chernobyl.
Similar to that. So, but now, I mean, the actions are pretty clear. I talk to students from China every day. Everybody's inside. The only time people go out is to maybe go to the edge of their community to pick up groceries that are being delivered to the local communities.
So tell me, how bad do you think it really is then, based on the people that you've talked to? Are there any estimation of accurate numbers, or?
No, I don't think there's an estimation of an accurate number. I mean, there are the official numbers, and most people would probably agree that it's higher than that. But to speculate, I think
it's hard to tell.
Is not really useful.
What about death? Any sign of death toll that nobody can? Those numbers have to be higher too, right?
Again, I hesitate to sort of say this one and this one, or this theory and that theory, because they're impossible to verify. Because you will have people who are going to throw things out, fake accounts. So 1 out of 10 might be real. But the thing is, if you start to go down that rabbit hole, which is fine and interesting, it doesn't really get you anywhere other than where you started, which is the default assumption that any number reported by the government is going to be lowballed. So I just look at the actions. The actions taken are they're building 2 hospitals. One is completed already to have a quarantine in Wuhan. The entire city is shut down. People across the entire country including people in Beijing, everywhere are staying indoors. Nobody is leaving their homes. Everybody's staying inside.
Yeah, I've seen videos. It's like a complete ghost town.
The streets are virtually empty. They are trying to get foreigners out, and they're putting them in quarantine facilities in the U.S. before they release them. So I think the actions are good, but the strength of the actions suggests the scale of it, and I think the fact that the WHO finally declared it a national emergency and the U.S. government declared it a national emergency, or rather the WHO declared it a global emergency, and the U.S. government...
How many deaths outside of China so far? One, right?
Yeah, I don't know, but...
It's a little weird. What do you think? Like, I know that there's any number of crazy conspiracy theories, but what about the one about China that they're doing it intentionally to stop protests, to separate foreigners from mainland Chinese people, and like it's like the first step to locking shit down?
I don't think that's likely.
No, nothing to it.
The economic downside to that is too great. They wouldn't shut down their whole country. I mean, that would be the equivalent of a reboot to try to ferret out some deviant factor. But that deviant factor, the mainland China is not worried about Hong Kong. They don't care about protesters in Hong Kong. That's not a concern for them. Hong Kong is shooting themselves in the foot at this point. So to try to do a sort of cold reboot on that, just to eliminate that concern, I don't think it matches with the economic setback that is caused by basically shutting down the country during the Chinese New Year.
Yeah, if the protests were somewhere else, and I don't see it happening during Chinese New Year either.
Why would they do it during Chinese New Year? Yeah, I think it's real, and I think it's confirmed by the fact that there are cases abroad. And I think that it's confirmed by the fact that the WHO is an international organization.
I don't believe anything about the WHO any more than I would believe. I mean, I believe nothing from anywhere in the news.
Well,
I mean,
but okay,
for sure.
The thing to do is just watch actions.
Right.
What is happening? That's the only thing. I think that's the only compass that you have here is to say what is happening. Global emergencies are being declared. Cities are being shut down.
Yeah.
Quarantines are happening, and so I think we should be concerned because
definitely, yeah.
I mean, the real threat is the fact that the incubation period of the virus is 14 days, and you can transmit. It's unlikely. It's less likely to transmit,
right.
but you can transmit within the 14-day period, which means you could infect a ton of people.
And not only that, but and we still know next to nothing about the illness. There might be, supposedly there are potentially factors to it that can stay with you after that. I mean, and you might be susceptible to getting it again. It's not like once you get it and you're cured, you're then immune, from what I've been reading recently. And we know nothing about it in general.
Yeah.
So we know nothing. We don't really know the death rate.
Right.
People will speculate that it's around 2%, which is not great, but not the worst thing possible. But it might be much higher because we won't know until it runs its course.
Right. Yeah.
But I do think it's interesting to see in the Western media, I don't think there hasn't been that much big news about it in the last.
No, yesterday they announced a national state of emergency. Though it was announced.
Yeah, on a Saturday. I mean, it's not like they're really pushing it, though.
No, they're not really pushing it. That's true.
They don't want, I guess, which is understandable. You don't want panic.
Well, it's a tricky thing because, should people be worried? I think people should be worried, but it's not like it doesn't seem to be the kind like SARS level as far as death rate. I mean, I think
10% for SARS.
Yeah, most people who catch it would get over it, and it's more people with compromised immune systems, the elderly. And I'm not saying that who cares about the elderly,
if they know
but
that for sure. But yeah,
the average death rate in China is 59. The average age.
Well, you're just talking about okay.
Of the 304 people.
Still, the recovered versus death rate is not that much less than 50%. But doesn't mean that it's actually 50% death toll.
Yeah,
but because you don't know how many people are right.
Right, we don't know.
So that's the frustrating thing about it. It seems like the rate at which it's spreading is much worse than SARS and MERS and Ebola and all that stuff. So it's definitely different than all those things, just for the rate of spread and the
virality of it.
Right, because it's not what's it called? droplet spread. You don't have to like actually kiss somebody or like be
Well,
sneezed right up your nose. It could just actually come through your skin or your eyes just by being on the same train as somebody. I mean,
right.
it's still, I
It's
guess
still
technically it could be particulate,
it
but
is droplets still, but it'd be very
through the air though,
diffused
not
droplets.
not
Yeah.
like Ebola where you get blood on you or something or
Yeah.
you're eating something.
Yeah, you need to lick someone's armpit before you can catch it.
Yeah, it's
You
funny
need to
see
kiss
with
them
that
right on
comment
the
saying,
eyeball. You need to lift
that
up their
comment say,
eyelid.
actually, I can.
Yeah.
That's what I pictured you doing with a mug like that.
Don't lick my armpit. Please don't do it. What?
Actually,
What do you think's in this cup anyway? Armpit juice. Forget about it.
that's pretty gross. But yeah, so what about, I mean, you're in New York. I feel like I'm in a much safer place being in like the only person within a quarter mile of myself and Lorena. We're the only people within a quarter mile of ourselves basically all the time. So we don't have to be next to other people. But in New York, you're next to people all the time. I know they're investigating a potential first case that hasn't been confirmed yet, right?
But I've heard authorities say that it's virtually inevitable, so I'm assuming it's going to happen. I bought a mask, as you know, but...
Well, you got multiple Chinatowns there.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I bought a mask just to be safe. I mean, as I think you saw in the video that I made, that hand washing and mask wearing can bring down, even if it's a surgical mask, can bring down the rate of flu spread by 70%, which is pretty significant, so...
It is, yeah. Just the fact that you're on a train, though, and it's like you're all in there in the same air. I mean, like, people never think of it, but air is, I mean, you see it if you smoke or something. You see that the smoke moving through the air, and you realize that air is just thinner water.
Right.
So when you're in a car or a subway,
air is
or
just
whatever,
thinner water. Carl
is
Sagan,
that not true?
take note.
Yeah. Okay.
It is. No, it's true. They should have put it in Cosmos. And
Right, I mean,
air is just thinner water.
We're just fish, and we live on the thinner side of the water.
If we were to heat ourselves, we would become gaseous.
And where some have gills, you have nostrils. But so, yeah, it's just gross to know that you're in the swimming pool, basically, and everybody's peeing through their faces at all times because they're breathing. And
Yeah.
well, I mean, we don't see it, but like I mean, if you had, if you did some kind of infrared or something, or I don't know what the wavelength is, but you're standing in a stew,
Absolutely.
of other human,
100%. I mean, think about that. When you smell a fart on an elevator, you
Exactly.
are putting literal atoms from that person's bunghole inside of your body.
Right.
It's terrible. It's horrifying. Excuse me, sir. Was that recently in your ass?
As a matter of fact,
Now it's in my body.
The old
I don't like it.
acid-nose
I don't
transfer.
like it.
Yeah. Well, that's why body odor is gross, and
Right.
and you're literally having particles of someone else's body go inside of your body.
Which your body will then integrate, and so in a sense, we really are all one.
Come on in. Talk about open borders.
We are
geez.
all one as a human species.
Yeah, we're going back to the one.
Yeah.
Every time we die.
The primordial fart, as they call it.
It's just part of the cycle of life to inhale, fart, and die.
Wow, what if there was a viral disease that only spread by farts, and so we had to wear infrared goggles that would detect when there's sort of a poop. Have you ever seen those infrared videos of people farting in public where they have a camera and they
No,
turn
but
the
that
camera
sounds
on and they put it on YouTube, and you can see someone standing at a falafel stand. You see this little puff come out of their butt, and it's probably silent. Nobody knows, but it's shocking how much people fart in public secretly.
Did they zoom in on the face to see how did the person give a little crack of a smile when they do it?
It's kind of grainy footage. And so there was one lady who was walking, and there was a little poop poop, a little puff coming out of her butt every step. One step, one puff.
This reminds me of Joseph Campbell, the origins of some Native American myths about how we all got here. This goes back to the source.
Yeah.
The old father, the great father, he started out eating something he shouldn't have eaten.
Yeah, why did he
with
do that?
100% guaranteed defecation rate of whatever he ate, and he refused to defecate. I'm sorry, this is off topic for people who don't know what I'm talking about.
We'll get there.
Okay.
What happened? Suddenly, it sounds good.
I pressed a button. I don't know what it does, but I pressed the button.
Yeah.
So we're talking about. I'm glad that you paused to do that. Why didn't we do that an hour ago?
Well,
half an hour.
I didn't. I wasn't sensitive to the treble that you were putting out there, and
the crap.
Yeah. It was.
So it sounds good now.
It does. Sounds great. It sounds much better. Yeah.
Awesome.
Hey, sorry
Even
everyone.
when I turned it down, so I'm turning it down. You can still hear me?
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Great.
Sounds fantastic. Yeah. Sorry, everybody.
Nice. No, like a
get over it
when everything goes to color. So we need to talk about something important enough to make that relevant.
Yeah, we need to make this conversation crackle and pop, just like the Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
Well, no wonder you didn't care about my jaw harp.
Yeah, it's because I didn't get the bass.
That
classic jaw harp bass sound is what I need. that deep thwobbing bass that comes out of the old.
Yeah. So getting back to the coronavirus.
Is it a jaw harp or is it a Jew's harp?
I just don't like to say that.
But isn't that what it's called?
Maybe that's probably anti-Semitic if I don't say it, and that's what it's called.
Right. That's the dilemma, isn't it? Because if you say you feel like you're being anti-Semitic by saying something like that, but if that's what it's called,
right? Because I don't know, like if maybe somebody, some idiot, like some hillbilly somewhere, hey, what you got there, Jew's harp?
Right. It could be, yeah.
And that's really called a jaw harp, but maybe it's a proud, traditional instrument for the.
And because of our lack of knowledge, both of us deserve to be canceled.
I would cancel us, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
If we don't get canceled by someone else, I'm going to make sure that we cancel ourselves.
That's good. Well, I have to get on Twitter first before I can get canceled. I'm not on
Sign
there
up
yet.
for Twitter, and then I'll post this.
Then you can.
And then we'll check. Well, we'll check to see if someone else has canceled us, and hopefully they have. But if they haven't, then we'll cancel ourselves.
Just start off with a red check mark for banned. I never got the blue one. Just banned right from the start.
Can you block yourself on Twitter? Can you offend yourself? So that reminds me of something. I just mentioned it very quickly. I read someone's post yesterday on Facebook, and it's becoming a trend. I'm noticing a trend. It was about how dare people criticize Elizabeth Warren. It's because she's a woman, not because of questions about her integrity. And I commented underneath, then why is it that nobody is lifting up Tulsi Gabbard, who has a much better record as far as integrity goes, as far as a record goes, as far as issues with honesty?
What was the answer? I'm curious to know.
The answer was, to my comment, ha ha ha, bye. And then I tried to say, could you elaborate? And I found that I had been blocked.
Canceled.
I found that I had been blocked. And this has happened to me 3 times before. Just leaving a comment. It certainly wasn't anti-feminist or anything like that, because I raised the question about Tulsi, who I honestly believe is
that side of
integrity.
the Democrats, the woke PC liberals are like, they are fascists. Really, they don't care for free speech. They have no interest in it. They only care about power. So they're not worth engaging with.
I just thought I would engage, and I thought I'd ask a question just to see if I could start a dialogue, and it got shut down. The other time I did it, someone posted a video of someone punching someone who was doing a Sieg Heil on the subway, and they said, if I were there, I would have done the same thing. I wish they'd have beat him more. And I said something like, what if this is just a confused 16-year-old who has hate for some other reason and is in a dark phase and needs some kindness to be brought out of this obvious, this Nazi phase that he's in? Why just punch him before
that's
you
true.
have
and what's
a dialogue?
bad about Nazis except that they commit violence against those they disagree with?
Right. And I said it's very fascistic to say let's just punch them before we say anything.
That's punch a Nazi. Okay, well if you punch a Nazi, you're a Nazi.
Right. Exactly. Because if you talk to any of
the Nazis that exist today are not the Nazis of. It's not like going over and fighting in World War II to punch a Nazi.
Right.
You're punching somebody that has a different ideology than you. I mean, if they commit violence on you, you can defend yourself and defend others against them. But as long as it's still free speech, and which I think just doing a Heil or whatever, that's free speech.
It's free speech, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it represents a hateful ideology. No, it doesn't. It's bad. It represents a hateful ideology. Right. But to punch it in the face is to be it, the thing that you're punching in the face. And so I said, isn't it ironic that rather than try to draw this person out and see what's going on with them and try to convince them to abandon their hateful views, that you would just punch them in the face and wish them to die? And
which is what
I got
so
immediately blocked right away. That's another
yeah.
one. Yeah.
That's how they respond. Yeah, I don't like listening to David Pakman generally because I consider him kind of too middle of the road for me. But
the other person is Jed. Jed Whittaker has blocked me as well.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of these small town liberal people that move to the city for the first time think they're being really progressive, and they're really just in their closed-minded PC SJW. Well, I mean, which they have no idea what they're doing. So it seems
it's more sad than anything. For the Nazi one, there are those people who are out of it now, who become sort of leaders to bring people out of white supremacy or Nazism. And when they tell their stories, it's always sort of like, I met a kind person who understood me, or I met someone who wanted to have a conversation with me and I felt respected.
Oh yeah, all these people
like
serve to do is to build up those movements.
Yeah, all you're doing is validating their hatred and driving them further away from the reasonable view. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. The sort of, my way of sort of expressing it simply is, this is my opinion, and then closing your ears immediately, and then not wanting to hear anything that could go against it. It's
like I
very
said,
sad.
that's I don't think it's that big of a section. It is a big enough section to be a problem in the Democratic Party because it's all the Warren people, not all, but a lot of the Warren people, people that were for Kamala Harris, a lot of Hillary people, Pete Buttigieg people. They're kind of in those camps, whereas you have free speakers. I mean, there is some like woke liberalism stuff in Team Bernie that I sometimes disagree with. That's the only problem I have with him, really, because I would say fiscally I'm on board. I don't really like some of the SJW stuff, but yeah, and so that's a problem because those people really aren't about any of the merits of the argument or the ideas. They're not for any progressive policies. They're just strictly operating under a sense of power, which is what shutting down free speech and conversation is about. It's about status and power,
and
keeping right. If the truth doesn't benefit them, they want to shut up the truth, which is not what truth telling is about.
Yeah, that's sort of the essence of identity politics, and that's a word that's thrown around too often. But if you really boil it down to a woman should be president, then why not just throw up the Sunny D and Rum lady with no teeth and say, well, she's good enough? I mean, it ultimately does come down to issues and views, but
who's the Sunny D and Rum lady?
Oh, there's a old YouTube video of a lady who loves Sunny D, and she's very fat and has no teeth. And
I'm for it.
I mean, if it's just a woman, why not just throw up any person? It's a woman. Vagina. Yeah. So, the absurdity of it is clear there, but so that's what it really comes down to is there are real qualifications that are needed, and everyone does recognize it, but then even though they're recognizing it subconsciously, they'll say, no, it's because she's a woman. We need a woman regardless. But actually, people do consider many other factors.
Right. Just to reduce somebody to their sex and their gender and their nationality is so backwards. I mean, a lot of people
very
were
ironic,
past
isn't
this
it?
for hundreds of years. I know not racist people weren't past it, but I mean, normally thinking human beings that treat each other equally have been past it for a long time, and to bring it back for political reasons, I mean, that's just completely wrong.
It surprises me how ironic it is. It's so ironic.
Oh yeah, that's the hilarious part about it.
It's mind-blowingly ironic. It is doing it and engaging in it, if identity politics is a thing, or that sort of behavior, is engaging in the most thatness that there could be.
Yeah, I guess it could. Yeah, it could theoretically. It's not Hitler, it's not Stalin, but it's. No. I mean, that kind of thinking helps get you there to categorize people into camps and say anything you say is wrong by default because of your race and your gender. I'm sorry, but we have to put you in this camp.
That's the essence of fascism.
If I were to disregard somebody for being an SJW, that would be based on their opinion and their values, not on their sex or their race.
Right.
That's different. That's different entirely. That's like saying I throw out Nazism because of what it embodies,
Right.
not that the people were any certain color.
And if they disengaged for half a second and said, "Well, hold on, tell me more about what you're saying there," or "Let me try to elaborate my view," then that might cause you to reevaluate the SJW title that you've thrown on that person.
Like all these new things against Bernie. Bernie's a sexist. Bernie's bad. Whatever. Bernie is evil. Bernie. I'm sure he's probably racist too.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like all the Bernie fans are young, angry men online. All the Bernie fans are basically everybody that was at the Charlottesville rally. That's what the news would have you believe.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the most absurd thing in the world. I mean, look at you don't even have to respond to that. But that just shows you, I mean, who is more progressive than Bernie? I mean, maybe some ideas of Yang's are a little bit more truly progressive.
Right.
Not
the
that
drug
many,
policy.
though. Maybe Tulsi has some ideas that are more progressive as far as foreign policy.
Sure. I think Bernie might choose Tulsi as VP.
I would say it's more likely to be Yang.
I think Bernie will choose a female VP. 100%.
I sure hope it's not anybody besides Tulsi Gabbard. No, I don't know
think
of
he will.
anybody.
I think he will choose Tulsi Gabbard.
Who can he really choose? That's an interesting
He
conversation
could
to
choose
have.
Tulsi Gabbard. That's about it. I think that's his best choice because she's very strong on foreign policy.
I don't think that's going to happen.
And she does stand up for her values. She
does, but
calls out BS whenever she can.
Yeah.
I
I would
think she'd be a good
like for that
choice.
to happen. But I would say it's more likely to be Yang based on the numbers. I would say there's people in the Bernie campaign that are probably more about crunching the numbers than the actual likelihoods. And when they look at who would actually get more votes and who is not absolutely like hated, because Tulsi Gabbard is absolutely hated by a lot of people on the left, like despised.
Right.
Whereas Yang is likable pretty much on all sides generally.
Right. That's a fair point. Well, too bad Andrew Yang is not a lady.
I know. Well, what if I guess he can't just identify out as
Right.
one.
Well, he could. Yeah.
He should.
Maybe he should. That would be playing
I'm
the game.
a lady.
That's playing the game there.
And he got to get a vote from a woman like me.
Andrew Yang.
Yeah.
Gabe is an Asian woman named Andrew Yang. Gabe identifies as presidential candidate Andrew Yang.
I think I'm likely to be a vice president. Andrew Yang.
Yeah. I identify as a horse. Therefore, I am a horse.
Well, nobody should be able to tell you that you're not.
No.
And look how high you can jump.
Hey, look how high I can jump. I'm, for God's sakes, I'm in the I do dressage. I'm mostly the one doing the hard work in dressage. I mean, really, the person on the horse, what are they doing? The horse is the one
Pumping your hooves, swishing your tail and whatnot.
I don't know that much about it, but it sure looks like the horse is doing most of the work, right?
It looks like fun. Yeah.
Like those horses that can jump straight up. That's amazing. I'm one of those.
Well, if you're going to be a horse,
I don't even know what it's called, but I know I'm one.
Just don't be Barbaro, that horse that got his ankle broken in front of a national audience and had to get shot in the head or whatever they did. I think they probably gave him a syringe.
Yeah.
They don't take out like a shotgun in front of national audiences.
Yeah.
It's a family pastime.
Welcome
to
the races, folks. Could someone set off some fireworks so that we can sort of have a shotgun sound mixed in there and people won't notice?
Mommy, I wanted Barbaro to win. He broke his leg, son.
We had to put him down right away.
Oh, he looks like JFK.
I think we've where were we? Oh, so we were going to get into
we got a little off topic. We were talking about
Yeah.
So talking about this election, it's really interesting what the DNC seems. There's like some snakes and like slithering things on the side that are threatening to
they're trying to get through the bubble. They're poking at the shields.
They have this beautiful Bernie shield that's starting to flourish and grow. Even I'm starting to feel the burn again, and it's glowing. And there's these snakes and like vermin trying to teed their way in.
Like in Avengers Infinity War, where some of them break through the shield barrier in Wakanda, and they sacrifice themselves. They sacrifice themselves, but eventually they get through, Eventually they get through.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'd love to do that. It's it's like those rats in
See if we can come up with some more analogies.
in Indiana Jones when those rats are trying to get away from the fire. There's some of the rats are on top and they actually get out. Others are drowned and burnt in the fire. But as long as they get through and get to nip Indiana Jones' girlfriend on the heel or something,
They all
then
win.
Fine.
Yeah.
They all.
There's sort of
every rat
there's
wins,
there's a tertiary rat consciousness, a unified rat consciousness that sort of exists.
Unified rat field.
A unified
yeah,
rat
that's-
field that exists sort of. It's somehow. It's omniscient, but it exists out of phase with this reality, and so it can participate in the pleasure of one rat nipping at Indiana Jones, even if the others sacrifice themselves.
That's true.
Once again,
we should probably
straying.
bring some other kind of varmint into like a bug or something. I like snakes. Snakes are a good one because rats have a bad history for being used to describe people. So you got to go with like a snake or like a cockroach.
Yeah.
That's probably, I don't know. Anyway, like the stuff the DNC is trying, they're talking about letting the superdelegates vote on the first ballot, so that they can just, no matter what Bernie does in the primaries, they're just going to maybe try to shut him down. What do they want? Do they want riots, like pitchforks and stuff?
Yeah, what do they want? What's so bad about,
They
It's
hate
crazy.
him with
They
their
do.
guts.
They do.
I just was reading today. They're talking about like they've already started the onslaught a little bit in the regular media, but they're going to unleash on him like everything. Remember when those articles were coming out when Hillary and him were going at each other? There'd be like 16 negative Bernie Sanders articles
I remember.
a single day,
I
all
remember.
at once.
Yeah, for sure.
The news came out and said Bernie has no chance of winning the day before a primary election in California, I think. They basically said Hillary won before the vote was cast.
The slight improvement this time is that the superdelegates are not able to announce themselves or pledge themselves before any voting starts. Because last
You don't think they're all...
Last time they pledged before Iowa. Last time they were pledged a month before, wasn't
I
it?
wonder if that's even worse, though, because when they pledged before, they don't have time to scramble behind the scenes. Now they can just I really don't know enough about how it works, but all I know is that they're doing their damnedest to ruin everything. They want Bloomberg. I think they're going to try to get Bloomberg because Warren's basically toast. Biden.
If Bloomberg got in like that through the back door, the country would end virtually. It would be the end of something. Something terrible would happen.
But it should have already ended.
that would be a catastrophe. Millions of people would pour into the streets.
The DNC doesn't seem to understand that. But I wonder if it will happen because we all have cell phones and TVs now, and we just well, it all sucks, but at least I have a new 90 Day Fiancé to watch.
Yeah.
My YouTube
my
addiction
600-pound
right.
life is on. Yes.
Literally mine.
Yeah. Oh, I'm featured on 600-pound life.
I can't riot today.
I can't riot. I can't even move.
My pitchfork isn't sharp
I'd
enough.
riot if I were thinner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta haul yourself down there.
Let me get down to 400 pounds, and then I'll go riot.
Yeah. Well, I would like to think that they would, but Democratic people, if it was Republicans, they would show up with pickup trucks and guns and stuff.
Sure.
But Democrats, they'll probably just should throw a whiny fit and be boohooing in the streets.
We sort of cower.
Hoo, hoo, hoo. All the who's in Whoville will be out in front of the DNC and say, now we have to vote for Bloomberg because you told us to.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seemed like cowards to me, but it'll be interesting to see. I think Trump would just be guaranteed. If it's anybody but Bernie, they're not going to give it to Yang. So if it's anybody but Bernie, Trump is guaranteed to win.
Yeah. More or less.
By a landslide.
Probably. Yeah. I think so. I think a lot of Republicans would vote for Bernie.
I think a lot of Democrats would vote for Trump if the DNC does anything too stupid.
Or not vote.
Yeah. Or vote for Trump for spite. It'll be just another. Trump is a middle
Would
finger.
you?
No, I don't. I think I might just stop voting and never vote again, no matter what happens.
I don't think I could bring myself to vote for Biden or or Bloomberg, Mike, as I call him.
Mike.
I'm a New Yorker.
I think Trump calls him Little Mike.
Little Mike. I like that. That's a good name. Well, I think
friendly. Yeah.
It's interesting how Bernie's name is actually great. Bernie's name helps him a lot. Crazy Bernie. It's sort of endearing. I think Trump really likes Bernie.
I'll take Crazy Bernie. We know Trump is crazy. It's not that bad of a name. It should be
it's really good. It's not like
Commie
Little
Bernie
Marco
or
or
yeah.
Sweaty, whatever it was. But yeah, Crazy Bernie is a
Crooked
good name.
Hillary, that still sticks around.
So he picked a name that might make Bernie more endearing to people. Crazy old Bernie.
Trump is formidable, so even if it is Bernie, he'll shift on the spot and do something else. I mean, isn't it hilarious that no matter how hard the Democrats come at Trump, it always backfires? It's almost like he has like a supernatural charm or a spell or something, like a reverse card in some kind of Magic the Gathering thing.
Yeah.
No matter what they do,
You play Magic
they
the
look
Gathering?
worse. No, but I'm just imagining the potential.
Yeah, okay. I'm just curious because I'd never heard you mention it before. So,
Is there a card like that?
no, it doesn't quite work like that. But
Okay.
we should play sometime. It's fun.
Well, I have to learn how to first. But doesn't it seem like that with Trump? I mean, there was the whole Russiagate thing that completely failed. The impeachment thing. There's other things. But anything they try,
Yeah.
it ends up being worse for them than it is for him. He always looks better. He gets stronger.
Yeah.
Everybody that's tried to take him down, even within his own administration, he's gone through so many people that after they leave, they're like, I hate Trump. Like Bannon, he tried it.
Bannon
John
still
Bol-
speaks favorably.
Well,
of
no,
Trump.
because he had to come crawling back. But when he left, he was anti-Trump.
Yeah.
But now he knows where the wind blows, and now he's Trump again.
Yeah.
It's just funny. I
It
don't
is.
know.
He does have a sort of supernatural power. I think he's being carried by the winds of deeper forces.
Yes.
But he knows how to tack and change his sails and pull in the rigging at the right times to ride those winds. It's not like he's not creating it. You know what I mean? He's just
Right.
he knows how to
No.
navigate it. He's got the right binoculars or the right lenses
the
on to be able to
ultimate-
sort
the
of
ultimate reactor.
feel the breeze moving and the slight variations because he's been a huckster for so long. He's been a scam artist for so long that he has the spider-like intuition and sensitivity to what's going on around him, so that he probably doesn't even think about it. It's probably just a
It's second
natural
nature. He just operates
reaction
like
for
that.
him. Just boom, and it happens to be right on point because the structures of government and media are
They're
so
breaking down.
rigid,
too.
and they're under their own stresses, and he just sort of naturally is able to lean on those stresses. And consider how much of a focus there is of Trump on the media. I can't watch. I used to watch MSNBC and CNN to get information. I can't anymore at all.
You can't.
I
yeah.
can't watch it because
You have to go to YouTube
it's
for your
like,
news.
Again, I know. Yeah, I know. But it's the level of vitriol is too extreme. And
on YouTube.
no, on
On those channels.
on those channels. I don't really watch any
I don't
news
think-
anymore.
They don't have. I mean, they have no interest in the truth at all. It's always just about some spin or something.
Yeah.
They don't really care. It's never been. It hasn't been news for a while, probably
Yeah.
since like the 70s or 80s.
I don't care.
That's the thing too. It makes you just become a doomer, right? And you're just or a black pill or whatever.
Bernie gives me hope. I support Bernie Sanders. I think if we could get
How
Bernie in
pissed would you
office,
be?
if we could get Bernie and Sanders elected, then there's hope. There's hope. There's actually hope that some that people can do something, right? People can make
You
something
ever watched
happen.
The Big Short?
No, I've seen the clips from it, but I haven't seen the whole movie.
It's worth watching.
Yeah.
The only problem with Bernie getting elected is that's all still going on, and
Right.
that the whatever they call it, the deep state, right? The deep state apparatus is all still going on.
What is
It
that?
will
Though? I don't
take
even
a-
know what the deep state is.
The deep state is basically the intelligence agencies and the level of government that's not publicly elected that exists, but it actually has the real power and all the sway and really actually runs the world. It's just like it's the state.
To what extent is that relevant, though? You know what I mean? If Trump could do what Trump has done, how relevant is that? Does that make sense?
Well, it's relevant that like they're trying to get him impeached, and they were actually spying on him when he was running for president illegally, and that I mean everything that they say that he does, they do it 10 times worse, and it makes people actually believe that there is a deep state. I mean, all the regime change wars, whatever's going on in Venezuela, the fact that we live in a military-industrial complex, and they just started to sound like Jimmy Dore if you keep ranting, but they got 131 billion more dollars for the military, and they can't pay for education, stuff like that. Like they're obviously the people's interests are not being even slightly listened to.
Sure.
They don't.
Yeah.
They're just going to drive it off a cliff.
It's just I don't know. I'm careful about the words because when people hear the word deep state, it means so many different things to so many different people.
That's why I said as they call it. I don't really use that term, and I don't know if the term would apply in the same way other people think of it. But there's something to the intelligence agencies being. They don't seem to have the interests of the people in mind. I wouldn't trust anything that the CIA or the FBI said necessarily about anything, just because it comes from a position of what used to be an authority. I mean, they've shown so many times to be liars. We don't know anything that's true. That just makes people angry.
Yeah. Well, if you read comment threads under most videos that are any
pretty much all
related stories to those things that you're talking about, it's the sentiment is pretty universal. It seems like
pretty much against all the news organizations too. It could be CNN, MSNBC.
Yeah.
Actually, Fox is probably the one that would have the best comment section.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy
Are you
enough.
becoming a Republican, Gabe?
I don't think so, no.
No. Okay.
I'm more middle. Well, I would say, I don't know what I am. Definitely fiscal liberal. I mean, people should be allowed to be however they want, but definitely not a Democrat as they are now.
Right. Yeah.
The Republicans, I think, tend to be more right than the Democrats with things relating to Trump just because of circumstance, not because they're good.
Right. The viewpoints you still don't agree with.
Right.
I think that for me, the best thing to do is just know what I think is right in terms of principles or what things I think should happen as far as healthcare and the economy and education, and then stop and try not to go down any rabbit holes and say, well, those are the things that I want. What decisions can I take or what conversations can I have help to move the ball forward, and I won't go down any rabbit holes because it's sort of like the coronavirus thing we were talking about before.
Gonna have to sit back and wait.
There are 10 different fake stories and conspiracy theories going on about the coronavirus. So if you go down a rabbit hole and say, what about this one? What about this? What about that? Well, if you go down that rabbit hole, you either end up in a place where you're surrounded by fictions and can't recognize reality, or you're back where you started confirming what people already kind of assume anyway. So
right.
I don't know.
I agree. I was talking about that with Josh Reisner the other day. He said exactly what you were saying, and we kind of both agreed. But it's so interesting just thinking about where we are with technology, and supposedly all our technology would lead to more information, but it's really led to more confusion. There is more information, but much less specific information. I mean, we almost told John Lennon quote, which I'm sure comes from somewhere further back, but the more I know, the less I know for sure.
Well, it definitely has an analog in the psychology of an individual person. I've been reading a lot of Jung lately, and the most tumultuous time of a individual's. I just finished Psychology of the Unconscious.
Oh, yeah.
Which has been, I think, renamed Symbols of Transformation or Transformation of the Libido. I can't remember. But anyway, it's about the will to live is the libido. Not the Freudian sense, the more sexual sense, but the will to life, the the primal survival instinct, whether it's sexual, food, those things are a river, an energy within each person. And there's a transition period from childhood, when you're dependent on others, to adulthood. And so if the complexes are going to arise, if the complexes are going to come out, it's because something trapped or created a knot in that energy stream between the stage of adolescence and adulthood. And that's when the complexes come out. Not necessarily in the Freudian sense. I mean, just in general, if there are any sort of deeper psychosis or paranoia or anything that prevents the person from accessing their full will to live or their full libido, it's sort of the same thing in that we're in a transition period, and that's where the problems are created. And then you have to come out. You come out on the other end either more damaged by it or somehow stronger. And in the same way, we're in this period of the internet being this all of this negativity and the filter bubbles and the rabbit holes that we go down. Are we going to come out fragmented at the end, or are we going to come out eventually with not a consensus, but some sort of higher consciousness that's better than where we were before. We're more empowered by the data, but we somehow have a cultural curation process that allows us to not destroy each other. Does that make sense?
It does. It's interesting to think of. I guess I don't want to. It's You're kind of. I don't want to go back to the specifics of politics, but I guess I'm just thinking like so we can sit back here and wait to see these processes unfold, but being a part of them, you have to kind of be active, right? Or is it a moral imperative to be active, or do you sit back and wait until they unravel and then just pick up when things make sense again? Because there's things happening every day that we could have individual personal problems with, and maybe take action to affect how they will end up unraveling.
Well, I think action is relevant. I mean, I mentioned the.
Well, we're sitting here talking about not voting, right?
Right, which is an action. It's
That's
not
true. Yeah.
pulling it's the trolley problem, right? If you decide not to pull the lever to divert the train, and the train kills one person, your non-action is an action to kill the one person, right? The trolley going down the tracks. You pull the lever.
As Jordan Peterson put it, it could be a lot more bloody complex.
Sure.
When he added all those ridiculous additions to it.
Well, I know that the person who posted those things that I don't agree with will block me, but I still comment because I want to provide a check to that behavior that I think is unproductive, to let people know that if you just post something, you either have to engage with me and have a conversation and tell me why you think what you think, or you have to block me. And I hope you have a conversation. But that action, I know what's going to happen, but it's in my way a way to take an action to not just let things slide. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it does. It is helpful to be true to whatever you believe is actually the truthful, rightful thing to do. Like voting for Jill Stein, people would say, well, that's just a protest vote. That's worthless. But a lot of people did that, and a lot of people didn't vote for who they were told that they had to vote for. And now the situation we're in is potentially brighter than it would have been. I mean, how nice is it now that we have a chance for Bernie to beat Donald Trump rather than being stuck with Hillary and having another 8 years of Hillary or a Republican, you know what I mean?
Right.
So we actually have a chance of truth now because enough people, not necessarily because of people like that, but I think if you do whatever you think is right at every step of the way, there's nothing else you can do.
Yeah.
But then you have to be forced, you're still stuck in the problem of trying to untangle truth in a very complicated and tricky situation.
So the divining of truth from fiction is the thing that got harder with all of with filter bubbles
technology.
and technology. That's the thing that made it harder. But what you said, I think is exactly right. Take one genuine step at a time. If you take the step and that's a step true to yourself and it feels true to yourself, even if in hindsight it's stupid. In hindsight, it might be stupid, but you took a genuine step, a self-reflective step, and that's the only thing that you can do. And the information problem might sort itself out over time. I think it will. I think there will eventually there will be infrastructure in place to. There is infrastructure in place to check fake news.
There is, but you have to who watches the watchers type of situation, right? Because a lot of these, say PolitiFact or all these political fact things, they're almost 90% fake. They're all driven by
some things.
Ideology.
I think work YouTube.
YouTube, yes.
Hold on a second.
That's still
hold on. You're being conspiratorial there for a second. I'm just saying they did a thing that I think is good. If there is a video from an organization, all they do is say under it, this organization is partly sponsored by this government, or this channel is partly blah 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 by this company. That's all. It's just information, and you can do with that what you will, but it's just transparency. So all it is a creation of transparency. I realize YouTube has their own agenda. I realize
I wasn't saying YouTube was bad. I was saying YouTube is good because it's just individuals.
Oh, I'm sorry. I judged what you were going to say.
I also was jumping in, so.
Why? I thought you were going to get that. You've been saying. Yeah.
No, I was saying, but at YouTube, there's a fact checking of individuals, and that's what's nice about it.
Yes.
You could, I don't know if any of them are all right. I watch a lot of different people and try to pay attention, but I watch people on the right and more on the left than the right, and just kind of take what I want from both.
Right.
I guess that's all you can do.
Well, there was that example of Cenk Uygur being taken out of context with his conversation with David Duke, and Kyle Kalinske rallied everybody on Twitter and made the New York Times post a retraction. So that's a thing. I mean, it's not going to solve any problems right away, but it is a thing. It's not bad.
Yeah. I think people are starting to turn against the whole woke brigade, especially because a lot of it's coming to roost in their entertainment, and that really bothers people. With what goes on with Star Wars and Star Trek and
nice segue.
I don't watch Doctor Who, but Doctor Who, people are very upset about Doctor Who.
Heard about it,
and it's just interesting to see how not me, Doctor, but it's interesting to see. What's that mindset, the kind of an effect it has on art, which is to remove all the feeling from it. It is, there's something systemically wrong with it.
Well, yeah, there is a fundamental core to a good story, and there is a fundamental structure to what makes people naturally grab onto a character. And if those elements aren't there, it feels empty.
Who are a certain gender.
Oh, yeah.
I only relate to white male characters.
Okay.
As a black woman, I'm attracted to the opposite.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So that's me.
That's the coincidentia oppositorum, the marriage of opposites.
Senor, yes.
Yes, exactly. I think that is so complicated because then you have the fact that that's a problem, and then the fact that there are whole YouTube channels dedicated to talking about how that's a problem, which then swings the pendulum too far and then becomes this sort of gross thing unto itself. There's one guy, the guy with the beard, I don't know what his name is, but he's always talking about only that thing. And when I watch it, I can acknowledge there's a point there, but for some reason this whole thing feels gross. Like you're obsessed with being angry. Maybe I am. I think that sounds right.
Yeah.
Obsessed with being angry about the things that are happening in media, which is a premise that shouldn't exist, and it just feels gross.
Yeah,
I don't
want to say anything specifically about him, but I know there's a certain type because I follow a lot of those the fandom menace, which basically it's interesting how bad The Last Jedi was. It spawned a whole new genre of entertainment.
It's amazing.
Now that's a movie people don't like.
Now there's a film that people can get behind not liking.
Exactly, because you have all these people. I mean, Mauler and all those. You can. There's so many of them, but certain ones you can tell.
I like Mauler's videos. I listened to them argue about The Mandalorian for 4 hours yesterday. I had other things. I try not to listen to their live streams too much, but I have in the past. But
that's a good one though.
Yeah.
The Mandalorian, because they had one guy that's for it and basically 3 against, and they went back and forth on every detail. I think they streamed for 10 hours, and they only got through 5 episodes. They still have 3 to go.
I've seen them live for over 24 hours before.
That's good. People should be out there doing that. I fully support that, and
we'll get there eventually, Gabe. Eventually, we're going to do a live stream, and it's going to be a 4-hour live stream. But first, we need to have at least one fan.
When that fan gets here, that'll be nice. We could take super chats from him.
Yeah.
And we won't answer any other questions unless they do another super chat.
That's right.
But so Mauler and those guys, I see them as purists because they don't seem to care. They will call out people in their chat and say, no, you're wrong. But there's others that they'll look around the internet for articles that go along with this line of thinking, and they've commodified it. They made it into a business.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
They look at everything from that angle. So a lot of these, some of the things I heard about Star Trek aren't as bad as I thought.
But you jump into a camp, and as soon as you jump into the camp, you shut off a part of your mind that is able to call out people in your camp for being assholes. You should be able to at any time, no matter who you are. You should be able to Steve Jobs people. Right? Steve Jobs will be your best friend when you're doing the right thing. But even if you just had a wonderful conversation with Steve Jobs, and you think you're on good terms, and then you do something that is completely out of the sort of direction that the company is going, and he will bite your face off immediately.
Right.
You cannot be friends with that person in that context. And so a good critic, a good commentator is someone who can say, yeah, I agree with you on that. And then you say another thing, and they say, that's stupid. And that's how it should be. That's what I like.
Yeah, so getting into the specifics of that with Star Trek.
All right, we're talking about Star Trek.
Yeah, we could probably go back. Oh boy.
But you did it.
Mike
You
Soklasa
did
probably got a disturbance in the force when
Yeah.
you said that.
Yeah. Well, you did a nice segue there. I appreciate that.
No problem. I try to make your show nice and smooth and wonderful.
Yeah.
All the edges sanded down. But what I was going to say is, going into this, I'm kind of a Phantom Menace guy. I like most of what they have to say, even though I can see that they're cherry-picking things sometimes. But
Yeah.
So I heard that this new Star Trek was going to be an absolute disaster of PC politics and whatnot. I can see little things that they're referencing as far as politics. I think I can see them, but I don't think that's not my problem with the show. More of my problem with the show is that I don't really care. I think it's a little boring. The first episode I really disliked. The second episode was better.
Yeah.
I guess we can get into the specifics of the episodes, but
Let's do
talking specifically about people hating it for the politics, I guess there was that Ray syndrome of there's an all-powerful girl who doesn't know who she is. Everybody keeps telling me they know me.
Yeah.
Well,
then they blow her up. So luckily,
that's true. But there's another one, and then it doesn't really matter.
doesn't seem
Anybody
to be
that dies is actually not dead. Just
Right.
like in Star Wars.
Well, yeah, that's a fair point. I don't yet feel deeply emotionally connected to the show, but then again, it's only been 2 episodes, and so I didn't feel deeply emotionally connected to Mandalorian, and I guess I still don't. It's still kind of light, but I did enjoy it the more it went on. I think one of the issues with it is that it's a little overcomplicated in the way that they've contrived the basic premise. They've added too many elements, and I think that part of it creates a little bit of maybe it'll come over time.
I don't mind the elements, but I don't like the way they're revealing the elements. It's like too expository. Like with the people, like they're trying to find out who the girl is in the second episode with they're going through the computer or whatever, and they're like,
Yes,
and then
I didn't
this
like
and
that
this
part.
means this and this and this, and it could have just been them saying this and this and this and this. It would have meant the same thing to me. I
Right.
don't care about all that.
Right. They
You could
focus
have
too
gotten to
much on the
point.
minutia
Right.
and less on the
It's probably 'cause it's
feelings of
time-filling.
the actors. Right. They should
Right.
focus on developing the character of Picard as an old man. So there was a critique of him being sort of the Luke Skywalker became an old man, and it kind of the same sort of thing. I don't think that's true. Mike from Red Letter Media said that Picard wouldn't have this feeling about Data, wouldn't respect and love Data. But I
Yeah.
disagree because he's very old now. He's no longer in the role of a captain. When he was biting off
Also-
Data's head earlier in the show, in Next Generation,
Right.
he had to do that, but he can still, you know,
Right, and yeah, I mean,
change.
he had that whole. I know it was maybe just because of his ethics, but there's that classic one about him going to court, for Data for his rights,
Right.
As a sovereign individual.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they're best friends, but they got along. The other important thing I think to remember would be that this is the Kelvin timeline,
Right.
which I like, because that means it separates good Star Trek Next Generation from bad. That
Yeah.
means all those movies exist in the J.J. Abrams verse. Isn't
Right.
that nice?
That's very
Now you
interesting.
can throw them away.
Right. Yeah, you can put them in a side canon if you want to.
Right, which is the shittier one. Like this
Right.
one is
It's
where
the diet-
Picard's an
it's the
moron.
diet-
Yeah.
Well, no, I like Diet Coke.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, with a nice sandwich and some chips.
I like
you're
Coke
gonna-
Zero more than Diet Coke myself, but
When I worked at Target, I used to get a certain sandwich, and a Diet Coke tasted better with it than a regular Coke, and it was my go-to for a couple weeks.
nothing wrong with that.
Just so everyone knows that.
Nothing wrong with that. I
I
like
gotta
to
come clean before I go run for president.
Yeah, I have to admit I like to have a gyro every now and then. I like to go down to the corner shop and get a freshly made gyro.
Going down to Gyro Town.
And I used to have to hunt them down myself and find a pack far off and hunt them down. Usually you kill one of the young ones, and you gotta
Talking
eat them
about
fresh.
street vendors.
Gyros.
Oh, gyros.
In the wild, but now I get them at the corner store.
That's good. That's nice. Back
yeah.
to Star Trek.
Yeah.
It's nice that this Kelvin verse thing takes those terrible movies away from Next Generation, and now because anything that they do with old Picard that goes against what he did. What's the classic episode at the end of TNG? Time and Again, or
All Good
something.
Things.
All Good Things. Yeah. I mean, that's the perfect ending to the show
Beautiful.
because it goes everything with Q. Picard's relationship with him. It's a little bit over the top as far as how epic it is,
It's a heck of
encapsulating
an
like
episode.
all of existence.
It's a
But
dope episode.
It's dope, and it ties everything together, and it still has him being back on the vineyard. But if you do anything that's aside from that, you're ruining the perfect TNG.
Yeah.
So it's nice. I like this clean separation of, okay, this is J.J. Abrams.
There's a perforated line between the two universes.
One of them has Jean-Luc Picard being a smart, intelligent individual, settling things with Q, and the other one is like a madman with a machine gun, screaming like a monkey.
I don't think that's what
glass.
I don't think that's what he is, though. I mean, that's what he was in the movies, but I don't yet see that's what he's becoming.
This is the movie verse because
I know that.
I'm sorry, I was tying this back to his relationship with Data. His relationship with Data was pretty close in those movies. He was like his go-to guy, and Data sacrificed himself in the fourth movie, right? Nemesis.
Yeah, right.
Which is what they're always referencing. So these are very clearly coming off of those movies' relationship with Data.
Yes. That was Brent Spiner's precondition for coming back as Data. He said, "I will come back so long as you don't undo Data's sacrifice in the films. It has to be part of the story." That was his precondition. He wasn't going to come back otherwise.
It makes things neater. I don't like those movies, but it makes things neat.
I don't like the movies either, but so far I enjoy the show in the sense that I thought it was going to be all a lot of action focused on sort of the action elements of Star Trek and not the ideas. I think they're starting to build into ideas. The pace has been reasonably slow. I think the stuff with the Federation, where there's an undercover person operative in the higher levels of the Federation, that's happened before in old Star Trek. That's nothing new.
Yeah, that's what I was
There's
thinking.
There's nothing crazy about that. I'm fine with it. I think it's cool. They did that with aliens. The whole upper echelon of Starfleet was run by a bunch of worm aliens, and they sat around a table eating grubs.
Like, specifically, Rich's criticism was that it didn't do the optimistic Star Wars universe. Not Star Wars, I'm sorry, Star Trek universe. But that's they've done the same thing in TNG, like you said.
Yeah.
There have been plenty of bad admirals, plenty of rotten things.
Most admirals are bad in TNG.
Yeah, they're usually the
antagonists.
The
yeah, they're either difficult or they're demanding or they're doing some secret op that they won't tell others about, like the one with Riker where they were going back to find they were doing shield technology secretly, and cloak technology secretly, and it was one of the generals that came back and commanded Riker not to tell Picard and almost broke up their bromance.
I wish I had more to say about that, but it sounds true.
Well, it's just it's a theme, so it's nothing new. That's nothing new. All of the stuff with the Tal Shiar and the entity behind the Tal Shiar, I find it plausible. So where it could go wrong is if they continue to be bogged down in the minutia, in the this means this and this means this on the computer screen stuff, and CSI Miami whole show. That's where it could go wrong. But I don't think they've destroyed that themselves yet. They just maybe are trying to build the world. So if they move in the direction of what is it like to be an old man who's not respected anymore, who had this great career and now is sort of having a kind of a rebirth and maybe discovering a new part of himself in his old age.
I could see this whole show as an alternate what if timeline for Picard. And that so far I don't really mind what they've done with his character. I don't think he's said anything that's too ridiculous. It's not as bad as that clip that I sent you. I don't know if you rewatched it, but from the second movie, First Contact. Yeah. I know it's not like that. That is an abomination of Picard.
That's an abomination of Picard.
I want vengeance.
Right, that's not Picard. Picard is the guy drinking Earl Grey, talking about his experiences in the probe.
They have been a little heavy with the Earl Grey. He says Earl Grey like every other word.
I agree.
Remember Earl Grey?
I like Earl Grey. And you like it? I like you.
I knew there was something good about you, yeah.
That's a little hot. A little heavy. Hopefully it finds its own legs. But I think if they focus on the people, it'll be good.
Funny. The escalator shot you referenced, that was hilarious. He comes out of the meeting and he's like, "Oh darn," and he's on an escalator. He looks like I don't know, like Michael Scott coming out of an office meeting.
So my main problem with the show is that they do too many things visually and in terms of the dialogue that pulls me out of the Star Trek universe that I know. They add too many colloquialisms to the dialogue. Like, oh, that guy's so hot. I don't want to hear that in Star Trek. You're supposed to decolloquialize speech that it allows me to have a sense of this is classic. Right. That's what they did.
Nobody respects the classic as far as technique anymore, writing or with actual cinematic aesthetics. But I guess the one thing politically that I could see people being bothered by that I did notice was like they're trying to do some reverse things. Like how many characters in this are female versus male? There's like 2 guys in this whole show?
Yeah.
2 or 3? And I think like 99 women so far I've seen, which is fine. But it's just interesting that like every single, maybe in the future that's how it will be.
Yeah.
But
I don't have an issue with that whatsoever.
No, I don't either. It's just something I noticed. But I think
Gabe?
those 2 girls making that comment, like there's a hot guy over there, that's a intentionally reverse sexism thing. Like we're going to have our female characters comment on the hotness of a man. See? It's opposite now. We get the show, and we could do this version of it.
It's pretty hot, though.
Well, yeah. But, the other thing, I didn't like the lighting of the first show. The first episode it reminded me of, in Star Trek Generations, the part where Picard's back for Christmas and it's like all nasty and movie looking. And the shots on the bridge, no, not the bridge, the bar with Guinan, everything is like really moody and dark. I thought they went over the top with that. It didn't look.
Yeah.
It seemed like they were hiding the set with the lighting. Like we don't really have a set, so we're just going to do some really dim.
The thing that I think is amazing about the Next Generation and the next 2 shows after that, Next Generation and then Voyager and then Deep Space Nine, is they were able to create an aesthetic that even though it seems now bizarre that the laptop things on their desks were this thick and their communicators were giant compared to cell phones, there's something still 24th century about the aesthetic of that and the way that everyone is dressed. There's still something that feels future-y to me about it, even though maybe they just decided that they would make things bigger and clunkier because they're fun to hold on to.
Yeah,
right?
They got tired of the skinny ones. They keep dropping them.
Right, they keep dropping it. It's hard to pick up when I can't get my thumbnail around it. So
you don't have to have a screen protector on your brick phone.
Right. You have a big old chunky, light but chunky thing. Maybe that is the future. And also the classic speech thing. Removing the colloquial phrases makes it still watchable. I'm going through Voyager right now. There's nothing colloquial in Voyager other than things like yep, shortened words, but really nothing. And there's a lot of that speech, and I don't like the super Americanized, like that the guy that she's dating at the beginning in the first episode, the one that gets killed with the knife.
Yeah.
His use of language is very 2020.
I felt like in watching people work on the Borg cube, it sounds like they're working at like Facebook headquarters.
Yeah.
On the Borg cube.
Make it feel alien. And then there's the escalator. There's the fact that when Picard goes to check in to meet with the Admiral lady, they say, "Well, how do you spell your name?" They wouldn't do that in the future. They don't spell your name in the future.
I noticed also they had the global warming reference. Didn't they have part of Starfleet headquarters underwater? Which I think it wasn't.
I didn't notice that.
I thought that part of Starfleet looked like it was underwater. Maybe it was intentional. But I thought in other futuristic iterations of Starfleet it wasn't. So that wouldn't really make sense as far as global warming goes. I mean, if
you mean San Francisco being underwater?
San Francisco, yeah, it's in San Francisco. But I did like the solar panels on the San Francisco bridge. I thought that was kind of cool. I could see them once you don't have to use cars to go across the bridge.
You want to keep the bridge.
You want to keep the bridge. It's a culturally relevant thing. Yeah, just use it for solar panels. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah,
that was actually my one note. I like San Francisco Bridge solar panels.
That's your the one thing you wrote down.
It is actually, yes. I like the transporters. They're walking through, just on the street on the sidewalk. That's interesting. That's plausible.
Dope. Yeah, I like it.
But having that and then going down an escalator seems a little dumb, especially when you have these. What are they called? Tubes or something in all the spaceships where you're down in a second. Turbo lift. Why would you use an escalator when you have a turbo lift?
No kidding. Exactly. Yeah, why? Why would it look like a mall escalator? Exactly.
It should look different, yeah.
And why are the office chairs just regular office chairs? I mean, try something. Do something. Don't film it in Facebook's headquarters.
Yeah. Yeah, it is weird because the stuff on Mars, like I thought that looked pretty cool. It looked decent. The stuff on Mars
The
from the
androids?
second episode.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, and the whole they're obviously
Like
CG.
the android behavior, speech patterns, they did that very well.
But
His
then
movements,
he's
awesome.
in amongst some like regular 20th century people going,
Right.
"Hey, how you doing, Android?
Like,
Why don't they?
smell it, right? Yeah.
You see Roseanne last night, Android?" But they
Very dumb. But
why
the
don't
android
they
is
talk
great.
like the 19? They might as the colloquialisms. I didn't think of that, but that's a way to specify what's wrong with it. Why wouldn't they talk in 1930s vernacular? It'd be just as ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly.
Android,
It's just
what are
as
you doing over there? Huh?
Golly
Say.
gee, yeah, right, precisely. But you have to. So the fundamental issue then is the people who are writing these episodes maybe haven't seen every episode of
That's
Star
what,
Trek, and that
Mike
should
and
be a
Rich are correct about.
prerequisite. They should sit down with the original, the people who created.
You should have to like Star Trek enough to have seen the whole thing.
Yeah.
To work on Star Trek.
Yes. And you have to understand what imbibes it with its itness, so that you can have a futuristic looking. You can have a 2020 version with better technology and better CGI while maintaining its itsness, whatever you want to call it. I mean, on Voyager, Nick Sagan, Carl Sagan's son, was responsible for a lot of story ideas. He was a story consultant on a lot of the ideas, and he got it fundamentally, understood what Star Trek is and what it's about, and you can. I mean, he's not completely responsible, obviously, but there's a group of people working on Voyager, working on Voyager later then gets a little less good, but early Voyager, Deep Space Nine, and the Next Generation, and there's a thread through those, and it's not visual; it's something else, and it's a language of understanding a sort of a philosophy of the future that might be missing, and we'll know within 3 or 4 episodes if this Picard is going to go to the left into Discovery territory.
How
or
would
to
you
the
relate
right.
that to what's the first one called?
Sorry, I keep
Enterprise.
coughing.
Doesn't Enterprise have a kind of more modern aesthetic but it still worked as a show?
Don't say
no?
bad things about Enterprise, Gabe.
No, I'm not. I'm just asking. Doesn't that doesn't have the traditional, like when you look at Next Generation or whatever I've seen of Voyager or Deep Space Nine, I mean they almost look like they could function like on a stage.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just have the set as it is, no camera movement, and an audience watches, and they say,
right,
Alexander, you should not be doing that.
Yeah. Exactly.
But these new shows are all flashy.
Pretty good Worf right there.
Well, I wouldn't be able to do it without this little microphone right here. But the new shows are basically like people spinning around on a merry-go-round with lens flares, like the crackheads with cameras with lenses.
I do think
that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but they're not the Star Trek aesthetic. It's not locked down. Same thing with new Star Wars.
Imbued with the philosophy. I think imbued with the philosophy. It's not a visual thing specifically.
It has to flow through you as a filmmaker. You have to know what you're doing.
Yes. That's right. And I think Enterprise does have it.
Yeah.
I think Enterprise because the original Enterprise show, it looks very different visually. They have better CGI. How do they
maintain that with the different aesthetics?
Well, part of it is the sort of main elephant in the room, which is that now stories have to build on the one before, and every episode of Voyager, except for a 2-parter or the Next Generation or Deep Space Nine, is a standalone thing, a standalone story by itself, and it's self-contained. Right. That's part of it, and Enterprise might have killed itself because of that. It was the first Star Trek show to shift. I think in the second or third season they did the long. They moved. They shifted. They started with the individual, and then they moved. And
I guess I'm thinking purely of aesthetics because, I think the aesthetics are more important than people think because it gives you a mood and a vibe that it changes the nature of conversations.
Yeah,
makes you concentrate on other things. I'm just imagine if a Star Trek scene could be shot like a true Star Trek. If you look at different filmmaker styles. Stanley Kubrick could shoot a Star Trek scene with just like a flat, a camera movement that's going in like at, this fast or like tracking down a hallway. That could be Star Trek. Anytime you start whipping the camera around and having action scenes and craziness, It seems like that's not Star Trek. The stage is a good example. It should be more like a stage play, because even when action happens in TNG, it's very simple. Like, I mean, the camera won't move more than panning down to the floor, basically.
Right, and when you see two ships, you just see two ships like that.
Right.
So
but
that's
that
a very
gives
good
it
point.
that feeling.
That's a very good point. So maybe as a director, the first question should be, how am I going to build the interaction between these two sides or these two people? How's the conversation going to go? Where do these people stand? Rather than, what can I do to make this cool? What can I do to make this
zippy?
zippy?
The studio is never going to say, they're never going to greenlight anything that doesn't look like whiz-bang, flash, J.J. Abrams shit his pants on the screen.
Well,
they won't do anything other than that now.
I've got a theory, though. I've got a theory that the popularity of Mandalorian might start to shift the aesthetic, the standard for this sort of show. With the popularity of Mandalorian, with its simple, very Western, very stark
the frame,
style,
I like the simplicity
framing,
of the frame is nice.
Yes, I think that sort of might be the new. If Cybertruck is the aesthetic of the automotive future, maybe Mandalorian is the aesthetic of sci-fi future.
Here's a bold statement for you. So far, I think story-wise, the new Star Trek Picard I like better than the Mandalorian.
Okay,
and
yeah,
aesthetics I like the Mandalorian better.
Right.
If they swap those things,
right? Yes, I really think that people have to start. There has been this assumption over the last 10 years with the ability to do anything with CGI that with great power comes a great necessity for action and zippiness and lights
quotes,
and
yes.
flying around, right? But I think Mandalorian and some other shows too, but that's the first one that comes to mind, demonstrates that you use CGI to support, and you want to create a sense of stability and grandeur, and you want to build an aesthetic that feels very unique to that thing. And I think Mandalorian succeeds at that very well, and I think other shows will have to start paying attention to the success of Mandalorian for that reason.
Yeah, and I don't think Mandalorian's that great based on what I've seen, but except for the aesthetics. Like, there's enough power in the Star Wars aesthetic that that's all you need. You don't need anything else. Apparently, it doesn't need to make
as long
any sense.
as you don't blow it like Episode 3 or something. You know,
Or,
in terms of
the one with the pointed sticks and the villagers and the monotonous dialogue between house marms. Is that the one?
Oh, that's Episode
4.
4. Huh?
Oh, does that happen again? I only watched.
What
that
is house
episode
marms?
4.
What are we talking about? Are we talking about Star Wars?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what a house marm is. I just remember there was one shot in that episode that I almost turned it off, where it was like two ladies in a house talking to each other, and they're like, "I can relate," and they stood and like looked at each other, and it was like they weren't saying anything. Mandalorian episode 4. It was the lady that's watching over Baby Yoda.
Oh,
and
they're preparing for the attack,
preparing for the battle,
Walker
and there's like
AT-AT.
a shot in the house, and they like say something, acting like, and I was like, just like hurt my brain. It was so boring.
I forget.
You probably blocked it out. Your brain's trying to protect you.
I probably repressed it.
You have like a white blood cell that goes around killing bad memories.
Yeah.
And
dumps it into my liver. Oh, that's
Right.
why my liver turned black. Oh, I know.
You've got an old episode of The Mandalorian down here, son.
I gotta get a liver transplant. Get rid of
Secrete
that.
out. We got Steve Jobs' liver guy.
That's
He's
why
gonna
we're
deliver-
here talking about this, so that I
He's
can
going to deliver you another.
Yeah.
I can do it too, Mike. No, I'm just...
I don't hate Mandalorian. I like it because of the look and feel. I agree that the story is not amazing, but I think that they did something bold and different, which is cool, and it's refreshing, and I think the direction should be encouraged, even if it's not as good as it could be.
That's fair.
Yeah.
It's fine. I think it could be a lot better, and I think it will get better. The aesthetics are good. They're watchable. They're enjoyable.
But I think one thing that, if we're going back to Picard, I know we've been jumping around a lot, going back to Picard, as long as the show remains focused on the personal struggles of the protagonist, I think they'll be all right.
Yeah.
And they
honestly
honestly deal with those.
When
things.
people are nitpicking the story, I can see the problems too. Like Data having a daughter doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, I don't tend to get hung up on that stuff.
Yeah.
Like they in the review that they did of the first episode, Mike and Rich were talking. They spent a long time talking about the premise of how wouldn't they know that the star was going to explode way before there was going to be a supernova hundreds of years before
Right.
it happened. I don't care about that. Just set up the premise
Right.
and let's get it going and see if the story is any good and the characters are interesting. That's what really
I've
matters.
seen much more egregious things and
Yeah. I don't
other
care about-
plots.
I can
that
suspend
they
my
defended.
disbelief
Yeah.
well beyond that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Plus,
that
that's-
just goes back. I mean, that's nitpicking. Start the original
Right.
J.J. Abrams Star
That's the
Trek.
2009 film.
Go back
yeah.
and do that. Right.
Right.
We're just going off of what exists in this.
I thought
canon.
their review and their critique of the episode was weak, and I didn't agree with most of it.
Review of the review. I enjoyed watching it just because I enjoy it.
Yeah, they're funny
generally.
guys.
And it was before I had
Yeah.
seen the episode. It's hard not to say Mike and Jay, isn't it? You have to say Mike and.
No, it's not
Rich.
hard for me because I don't watch. I'm fairly new to them, and I don't think Jay. I don't like Jay, so I only watch stuff with Rich and Mike.
Jay's kind of got a hipster attitude about some certain things. He likes things that are very quirky and kind of disregards a lot of quality things. But
Yeah,
I like Jay as a person. I think he's funny. I like
Yeah,
his comments.
I'm not trying to make a statement about him as a person. I'm just saying I don't really like his comments or his reviews or his opinions. I don't like the products of his brain.
Love the guy.
He's,
Hate him though.
Yeah, I think the products of his brain firings are weak and dumb and shit. No, I'm not a big fan of his ideas. Every time I've heard him talk about a movie, I just go, next.
I disagree with Mike and Jay about plenty of things, but I always enjoy, and Rich, but I usually enjoy watching.
I find Mike and Rich to be very funny guys. I think they're both very funny, and I like when Rich laughs. I think he has a funny laugh.
He does. He's an internet celebrity.
Yeah.
His
And
laugh is classic.
yeah, it's a classic laugh.
It's interesting when people that are really good at criticizing or reviewing things are terrible at making films. Like their movies are notoriously bad, like even by bad standards.
Yeah. It's hard to make movies.
It is, but it's. I mean, they can successfully pull off. There's skits that they've done and like Half in the Bag that take some like filmmaking prowess that require acting, certain dialogue, timing that all work out just fine. But as soon as it's applied to an actual film project they're doing, it's like it all.
They have a
falls
film
apart.
project?
Well, they made a space cop movie.
They
and
did?
They made
I didn't know they made
They
a
worked on
movie?
a space cop movie for like a couple of years. They worked on it, or at least a year.
Was it good?
No, it's like unwatchable. And I think they were supposed to be intentionally making a bad movie, kind of like a best of the worst type thing.
Yeah.
But it's like bad. Like you can't
It's
even
like
enjoy watching
Tim and
it.
Eric's movie bad. It's bad in a bad
No,
way.
it makes Tim and Eric's movie look really good. I think it's really bad.
Wow. Okay. I'll have to watch it. Is it on YouTube?
I don't think so. Maybe it's probably somewhere. You can just.
Oh, so it's a
Google.
real movie. Was produced by a studio. It's real.
No, but I don't know if they just put it on YouTube for people to watch. They wanted people to buy it.
They wanted people to buy it with their
They
money.
sold it on Blu-ray. Yeah.
On Blu-ray. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Buy it on Blu-ray.
I don't
Space
know.
Cop. No, they're great guys though. They've done great things.
Love them. These guys. Yeah, they're great.
These are my guys.
These guys, I like them a lot. Jay and Rich and Mike.
What about other guy?
Yeah, the other guy. Space Cop.
He's the best guy. I like that other guy.
Macaulay
I know
Culkin?
that guy's name. No, I don't consider him to be a real guy.
He was on it. He was on one of their episodes, right? He's
been on multiple
He knows
episodes.
them, right? He's friends with them, right?
I guess they're friends. Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird. That's funny. It's great. No, I besides what we're doing right now, I really hesitate to say that this channel certainly is not
Don't
about
hesitate
movie
too
reviews.
long.
Yeah,
What were you gonna
it's
say?
called dead air, right? I hesitate to mitigate this dead air. I don't really like movie reviews in general, and I really want to avoid this
becoming
channel
a problem.
becoming movie reviews. I don't want it to be a movie review channel. We've done it a little bit here because we both watched this episode, and that's good. But I much prefer the conversation we did about Tree of Life, which was not a review. We were submerging in the depths of the film and talking about
to discuss the possibilities of the movie. It's to bring
Interesting.
more life to the movie, not less.
Right. So that's the thrust of this channel so far, and my favorite part about it is a movie. Let's break it down. Let's talk about
what do you like about it?
Not what we like and dislike, because actually half of the movies that we've done on this channel so far, I don't even like that much. But Enemy, I didn't really like the movie that much. It's not that good, but it's interesting to talk about. And
we'll talk about the ideas in the movie.
Yeah,
not like what went wrong
what is
with
good,
the
what
process.
is bad.
What were they thinking?
Yeah. Let's talk about the deeper themes.
That's I've thought this for a long time. I mentioned it when I reviewed the Breaking Bad movie. I don't like that everything is so reductive on YouTube, that most of the new content is content about old content.
Right.
And it's like we're going into this vortex of redundant, reductive criticism, like review. Let's review ourselves, reviewing ourselves, reviewing. It's like an endless mirror, when you see.
Yeah, we're
like
talking about Red Letter Media. We're literally doing it right now.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, see, and how easy it is to slip into.
Yeah,
it's disturbing.
These are dark times for us.
Disgusting.
Yeah. One and only time that we'll do this.
Don't watch this.
Yeah. No, but if you've made it this far, get out now. Things are not going to get better.
No, we're going to stop doing it, though. We promise.
We're going to stop doing it, and we're going to try to find ways alienate our viewers in other ways, hopefully.
What's good about what they're doing over there at Red Letter Media, it's funny.
I like the other guy, especially. So the other, do you have to go?
About Picard? I don't think they're here yet. I might just have to jump out pretty quick, but I'm here.
All right. Well, the last thing I was going to bring up is because we've both been reading Masks of. Well, I finished reading it a while ago, but you were reading Masks of God.
Yeah, I gotta see how long I have left. I think I have a few hours left, but I'm getting there. I don't know. This one's taken me longer than the Peterson one.
There's a whole ecosystem of ideas kind of in this
in the world
vein. Which is Carl Jung, Jordan Peterson, I guess, is part of it, which is Joseph Campbell, which is Terence McKenna, and it's got to do with symbols, it has to do with mythology, it has to do with finding meaning and purpose in life, and I think it has to do with anthropology.
Well, that's kind of what you want to do with your channel, right? To talk about things like that.
Yeah, and there's this, I don't know what to call it, but it's definitely a bubble of something, and I'm just kind of trying to dig deeper and deeper into it because I'm not tired of it yet. It's very interesting.
The thing, I guess, maybe we'll do a full review of it later. I don't know if I could say as much about it as I would about the Peterson book because he gets into more current examples, and this is more kind of examples across different peoples of the ubiquity of ideas like this. Is that the right word to use? But spectrum, yeah, sure. But ubiquity is, I was trying to say, like how it's across the spectrum, like it exists in all peoples.
Right, universals,
Yeah, universal. So there either is a necessity to it, or perhaps it was random. I guess there must be a necessity to it if it continues. And if it is across all peoples, it's just the transfer of beliefs. I don't know what it is exactly, but it's interesting to see how it's manifested in different forms and, in similar forms across so many diverse peoples.
The thing I was going to ask you about specifically, which is the thing that really jumps out to me, is it seems like there's some sort of inverse square with relationship to how early things are in terms of the brutality of rituals. When you read about the things that early cultures did to express certain things, whether it's to express rebirth and to express the those simple ideas, those simple themes, in order to rejuvenate crops or whatever it is.
I was wondering if it was
brutal. What do you make?
I was
of that?
wondering I was thinking about that specifically actually, and I was wondering if it was kind of macrocosm versus microcosm. Maybe the closer it is to the source, the more specific the
because
power
now
is emphasized.
We don't.
Well, I'm saying,
there's nothing like that. It's very watered down.
Yeah,
now.
but we're probably still carrying out the same actions. Like, say, if there was a political revolt, imagine in this country, what if things went so bad that like there was an uprising and people were killed or sacrificed? That's almost like a mass way of doing what was previously done amongst,
right,
200
so it's
people.
distributed amongst billions of people. Somehow it's still being carried out with the same intensity, sort of like
Right.
the
It's hard
conservation.
to say which ones are which. Like,
Yeah.
who is the sacrificial virgin? Is it the poor? Is it the rich person that ends up getting killed by a mob? I'm not sure, but I wonder. I think that's probably why things are less violent. I mean, is it the poor person that goes to war for stupid reasons? I don't know.
Well, that's a very interesting way of putting it. Sort of like it's almost like conservation of energy, where it's the same energy that it has to be in the system, but if it's widely distributed, then it maybe looks different, but the same basic forces are at play, and it's still happening.
So like in a tribe of 200 people, or maybe I guess 1,000.
You got to kill the kids.
There's got to be one of these kids is gonna die.
Hang it from a tree. Yeah.
Well, right, and then we chop their heads off and wear their skin around. And I'm not saying that I would do that, but that's an actual example.
That is an example. In case someone
right.
thinks that Gabe's being weird with his examples, that is, if you haven't, so just so people know what we're talking about, it's a book by Joseph Campbell. It's the first volume in a series of books. It's called Masks of God, Volume 1, and that's what we're talking about. Anthropology and mythology through cultures. And some of the rituals, especially bizarrely in the plant-based cultures, are extremely brutal. The plant-based cultures have the most extreme versions because of their concept of renewal, the need to bring back crops every year. Then it's a mother-based culture, and so there's
the hunting tribes seem to be more self-inflicted or personal, whereas instead of the whole tribe taking it out on one individual, kind of the rise of the shaman is kind of with the plant-based cultures somewhat. Although there are shamans and hunting peoples as well, but it's almost like the shaman is he's like a scapegoat of the subconscious of the total population or something.
Right.
Which is another thing I was thinking.
Amazing, yeah.
Now we are all shamans.
In what sense?
We're all the shaman now.
So yeah,
we take out the sacrifice on ourselves with our actions of whatever we do. We are our own dreamer. We don't look to others to dream. There's no longer a god or a structure or anything. We're like the tribe and the shaman, like all in one. And like our sacrifices, maybe we carry them out on ourselves through self-destructive actions, or we inflict pain on ourselves. We might do it to others too, but I don't know. I feel like the shaman character that was an in-between has disappeared. There's no more middleman, and now it's just everyone is partial tribal member and shaman at once or something.
Well, in the sort of crucifixion sense. I mean, the reason that the symbol of Christ is so powerful is that there is an unloading of something onto a single thing that then allows it to release, and that goes back to what I was saying about Jung as well. That the energy must flow in one way or another, whether it's a cultural energy. And the shaman is the guy on the outside of town who's very weird, and we scapegoat him, but he comes in and tells us what the weather's going to be next week.
He has many functions, which is interesting about the book. Sometimes he's a great guy that they get information from. Other times he's the cause of disease and plague, and you must track him down and kill him. And
there's a Christ analogy there too, though. And the way you're saying it. Right.
Well, unless you're like Christ is the final shaman, and then we're like in a post-shaman situation of just dealing with the consequences. I don't know. There's so many possibilities for what the meanings are, but it's endlessly fascinating to think about them.
It is interesting to speculate on the idea that somehow, because there isn't that thing to, scapegoat is a good word to use, then somehow it circles back and imprints itself on the psyche, and then we become methadone addicts and things like that.
Right, because we take the drugs now. We're the ones tripping out and having experiences, maybe just through mass media, just in a slow, dull gaze, passively or actively through like alcohol or, there's a lot of different ways people experience life, but they don't have that. He's like a buffer, the shaman, right?
Yeah.
And before that, I guess that's interesting though. So the pre-shaman, pre-plant-based cultures being more hunter-gatherer, they might have been a little bit more similar to us, but if they didn't have their vices or their own, they had their structures and their things that they would do, but there was a lot of self-harm, right, for sacrifice.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they say like all the Native Americans of a certain tribe would have completely disfigured left hands,
right,
because they would have to be making these sacrifices all the time. They didn't have the shaman figure in between them and God. It would be them making the sacrifices for benevolence from the father or mother. Or I'm just now getting into the Native American stuff. I like their theirs are weirder, but I like their mythologies.
Yeah. It's. I think everyone should read that book. It's unlocks a lot of interesting ideas that haven't been around.
Yeah.
One thing that comes up, I think, is the necessity of trial as a means of causing someone to feel their essential value in society. So, with the Australian bull roarer ritual, where they are without food and water and drink the blood of the elder men of the tribe and are separated from their mothers, and they can't just do this symbolically. They have to go through this traumatizing,
Literally,
horrible experience where they're cut and they're bled and they're drinking blood and they're famished in order to learn something experientially, and the experience is what connects them and links them to their culture in a meaningful way. Otherwise, they just float around and say, I don't know, I guess I'm patriotic, or I guess I care about my country or my people. No, they do it because they feel it, because that culture,
it's
placed
true. I've seen
its
that
energy.
It's true. I've gone through its truth.
Right. I've gone through its truth, and it's literally inside my body in a sense. And it's a constant reminder on me, a cut on me.
And they see the results, because they're probably, I mean, I don't remember the exact specifics of the implications of it, but I know, like, I mean, that leads up to a circumcision ritual, basically, right?
Yeah,
and,
but they there's a subincision.
Right, but a lot of similar, but there's similar like tribal rituals that are usually about circumcision, which is to prepare them for being able to like take wives and make children. So I'm assuming a lot of the belief in the experience they had is subsequently proven by being with a woman and having a child. It's like everything about what you know to be true, it came from that ritual. I went through it. I know the pain of it. I experienced it, and obviously it's led to exactly what they said it would,
Right.
and on continues the cycle.
And so I will carry it forward.
Right.
I will be the one to carry it forward,
Or
because
I guess eventually you learn you don't have to chop up your dick to make a kid, but
when you do that, well, when you just
doesn't mean it doesn't have value in the culture.
Well, right. And it's not that specific thing that's the thing that has value. It's the fact that there's a trial that you're forced to go through that creates a physical analogy, or a physical analogy to what you're actually doing, which is becoming an adult. You're leaving the protection of your mother and going to a new phase of life, which is the one who's going to add value to the tribe instead of being a helpless child. And if someone just tells you you're a man now, then you won't really get it. But if you go through the thing that tells you, you have to physically experience this excruciating thing, and it can take on whatever form. I don't think it has to specifically, well, I know it doesn't have to specifically be that, but it kind of reminds me of, there are modern analogies to that. There are things like mandatory service. You have mandatory military service at a certain age in some countries, where you have to go through specific military training, either for a number of months, a number of weeks in some places. Every university.
There's more superficial ones, like say bar mitzvahs or graduations or something like that.
Yeah, more superficial, but I think those really have an impact. I mean, I think for example, in China, one of the reasons that people are very patriotic and love their country and feel a sense of unity is because when every person goes to university, they do 2 weeks of military training. They do drills every day. That's all they do for the first two weeks of university.
And they also don't have a choice, right?
Right,
That
with
helps,
uniforms on. They have uniforms. Even the kid who was before he was a goth kid in high school and had earrings and stuff. You will put on the military uniform. Everybody will. And
the interesting thing too about all these rituals is eventually they do end up like breaking down and societies break apart. There's questioners to the norm.
Right.
I like that one about the guy that I think it was the king or leader of the group was normally supposed to eventually be killed, but this guy got a dream that it wasn't supposed to be that way, and actually all the priests are supposed to be killed.
Right.
It's a great new idea I got.
Yeah.
It's like so eventually these things do break down, no matter how.
What was the name of that story? That was an awesome story. I forget the name.
Was that
of
in India?
No, that was it was a Middle Eastern religion. There were the priests who would look at the planets, and then there was a storyteller, and he would tell a story every night, and then he used his stories he used the storytelling to
turn people
scam his way.
And they had
he trumped everybody basically.
Yeah, that's interesting. Trump basically is that guy.
Yeah, he is that guy. That's a very interesting analogy.
Yeah, it's a fascinating book so far. I really like it, and I like thinking of how it parallels, because I mean, we've seen that nature is everything is tied together. It's all about. I mean, you can see connections that aren't there, but there are obviously connections that are there, and the universe seems to operate on these codes.
It's fractilinear in nature, isn't it? It is sort of.
It's not like anything really truly random happens. You'll always see something in a new way, but it's all running on that code. There's always
It's weird, isn't it? There is the Mandelbrot the Mandelbrot set, right?
I have
and there are numbers
in my video. Yeah.
There are numbers that are in the set and numbers that are not in the set, and there's a reason that those numbers are in the set, and it's almost like and you see the same exact it's based on branch patterns. There's an equation that you can make where the result of the equation is fed back into the equation, and it creates a stability in nature where things will stabilize to a certain point and go for a period of time and then branch suddenly, and then those will branch suddenly, and then the branching gets more and more fine. But if you zoom into any of the branches, it looks exactly like the grand structure, and you think, okay, well this can't be a property of the universe. This can't be some sort of simulation code. This must be only one thing. But you see it not only in patterns related to heat. You see it in see it in nature.
Shorelines, human bodies.
Insane.
It's nothing escapes it. Yeah.
Nothing escapes it. Yeah.
Simulation confirmed.
Simulation confirmed.
Now you now you unconfirmed the simulation. Now that would never happen.
No, the dinosaurs. Yeah.
What you just did? No, just your actions there. That wouldn't happen.
Oh.
Nobody would do that.
Nobody would do what I just did. I just did that. You didn't think that was going to happen, did you? That a dinosaur would fly across?
I didn't expect that. I don't think anybody did, and it kind of disproved everything we just talked about.
No, it's just because the dinosaur was on a book I just bought that I want to show you.
Oh, cool.
This is called the Book of Symbols. So I'm trying to get deeper and deeper into this stuff. This book is very interesting. Each page is a specific symbol. So, for example, let's see. Cool. Let's see if I can find a good. First time I opened this, it was phallus.
Take that as a sign of something.
All right, so crow, raven. There's one with cockroach, crab. When crabs appear in mythology.
I like that it has those old-fashioned page cutouts.
Oh yeah,
like a real dictionary.
Heck yeah. And then they have pictures of the symbols in different cultures around the world. So
none of your audience or I can see the pictures.
I know, I'm just finding a good one. All right, so there's one. This is, I don't know if there's a little. Dew. This is dew. So it's representations of dew in mythology. D-E-W, dew. There are representations of. There's dusk. This one is when you see a cat. What is a cat? What do cats represent? And then they have the pictures of the statues with an explanation of it. And
came to my life, yeah.
Because it's very much tied to what we were just discussing. There's something also about in the human psyche about the power of symbols, as though they almost really are magical in a sense, as though the image of a tree, because it appears in so many different cultures but has the same fundamental meaning, there's a treeness, almost a platonic treeness that is represented in the subconscious, and when we identify it externally, it allows for not a release of energy, but maybe helps to clear some of that whatever internal detritus.
Your process, you're going to use like rationality to arrive at mysticism, which is...
So I'm going for, yeah.
Or logic or whatever. I don't know if rationality is the right word, but that's cool. That book looks awesome. How much was that thing?
$18 on Amazon.
Really?
Can you believe it? $18
I would like
for
one
this
of those.
book.
Yeah.
You should buy it. It's really interesting so far.
And a book that I'm using to prop up my computer. I bought that one book. I didn't start it yet, but I'm gonna read it eventually.
Ah, okay.
It's basically just a narrative of the terrible happenings. I feel like blood will like come pouring out of it or something.
Seems like maybe that's what happens when you finish it.
It might.
Yeah, blood comes pouring out of your eyeballs. I finished. Laser blood.
Pioneer will just runs through and scalps you as soon as it's over.
But there's you don't want to. I'm a very skeptical, non-believing person in anything. I don't like to necessarily put faith in anything. So the process right now for me is to just try to notice things because they're interesting. So that the fact that, well, you were just mentioning the fact that in a way cultures are fractilinear, and that the things that occur for one person occurs in the culture, occurs throughout time, occurs now in the present and in the distant past, right? Tribally. That is sort of fractal shaped, right, in a way.
Yeah.
And then there's this symbol thing, and Jung is very focused on symbols as well, and so it's kind of, I'm reading through all of this stuff too, but it is really like these external things are cues that evoke a magical spell not in a real sense, but that evokes something that sort of allows two perfectly, sort of like the smell sense, right? The atom of the thing fits to a particular structure in your nose, and that's what allows you to smell. There's something there, buried deep, and when it sees that symbol externally, something happens. And
I like it.
If it's in a story, it gives the story a power, and it's able to actually change.
Come up with a unified theory of philosophy rather than screw mathematics. I mean, that stuff's all. Well, I think people will figure that out eventually.
I think that ground has already been covered. I think Jung has got it.
Did it. It's done. Now you
got it nailed. I just got to read all of it.
Okay.
I think I don't know. I haven't read all of it, but it's pretty interesting.
I think I better go. But
right.
It's been a good chat. I hope I didn't waste your time when you were supposed to pick up mushroom.
No. That ship has sailed.
Okay. Long sailed. Long time ago.
Long time ago. All right, bro.
Anything else?
I think we covered everything I wanted to cover.
What are we talking about next? Just follow up on the. We're not going to review Star Trek anymore. We're going to talk about things.
We're going to talk about something real.
I'm going to go out and look at a tree. And I'll tell you.
Look at a tree. I'm going to go out and look at a phallus. If I can find one. If I could find one, I don't know where I could find one though.
I have to use the restroom, so I'm going to check it out. But I guess that if you could decipher the import of a particular symbol's effect on the human psyche at certain times in their life, you could see the effect of living in nature versus living in the city, right?
Well, yeah.
What happens when you're surrounded by boxes all day instead of trees?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Or like it's submerging
car horns instead of birds.
Right. If your consciousness is built of nothing but man-made structures rather than natural ones, what does it do to your consciousness?
Yes. And why is it that I deeply enjoy going into a Catholic church, sitting in the pews, which I do almost once a week, and just sitting there in the church in silence? Why do I do that? I'm not a Christian. Why does that make me happy?
And no respect for the Catholic religion specifically?
No, none whatsoever.
Yeah,
but I do
just
it.
Something about the church.
Is something that makes me feel happy when I go in there.
Something about the human intent to create beauty for a reason outside of oneself. It's not like you don't go and sit by a statue somebody made of themselves or something. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It's about an aboveness and a beyondness. These are not real words, but you know what I mean. It's reaching. It's reaching
right.
for something.
Well, it's
Like,
reaching
there's
for
beauty in
something
that.
externally, but it's also tethered to something very deep and primordial. Whereas you would, if you saw a statue of some money or some bills, it's a
Right.
relatively recent invention based on bartering. It's too superficial to resonate deeply, and so we care about
And how would
money
you, right?
because it
And how
allows
would you
survival.
feel like sitting in a modern like prosperity doctrine church or like a Joel, like some
Yes,
modern church? How would you feel in there? You'd feel like your skin would crawl, right?
Right.
You'd feel like you're at a meeting of people planning a war
Lizard
or something.
people,
Or-
yeah.
yeah. It's just me. Run, run.
Yeah.